Thanksgiving. The table was loaded with food, laughter, and that same old tension humming beneath it all. My sister's wedding had been the topic of the day. Again, when's yours? Someone asked. I had mine, I said simply. Dead silence. Forks paused midair. You got the invitations, I added. My dad frowned. We never got them. I reached into my bag, pulled out the receipts. All signed for. The silence got heavier. You threw them away. I cut into the turkey. It was dry, of course. It always was. My mother never could time the bird right, but no one ever mentioned it. In our family, criticism was a privilege reserved solely for me. Sarah, honey, could you pass the cranberry sauce? Amanda's voice was syrupy sweet, the kind that sticks to your skin. She'd perfected that tone after 32 years of being the favorite. Her diamond ring caught the light as she reached across the table, blinding, just like her personality. I handed her the sauce without a word. 16 months. That's how long it had been since I last sat at this table. And already, I remembered exactly why I'd stayed away so. Amanda's wedding was absolutely spectacular, Mom gushed. Beginning what had to be the 15th retelling of the event I wasn't invited to, the flowers alone cost more than some people's cars. And that venue, oh, that country club has a 2-year waiting list. But Amanda's husband, has connections. Connor knows people everywhere, Amanda said, giving his arm a little squeeze. Connor smiled. That polished, politician's smile he probably practiced in the mirror every morning. Perks of being a successful litigation attorney, he said. I cut into my turkey again and said nothing. This was the game. They talked at me, not to me. I was there to nod, smile, and soak up every smug comment like an emotional sponge wrapped in a holiday sweater. Dad cleared his throat. The ceremony was beautiful, Sarah. You really missed something special. I'm sure it was lovely, I said, my voice even lovely. My mother's fork hit her plate with a sharp clang. It was the wedding of the century. Everyone who matters in this town was there. The Hendersons, the Bowmans, even Mayor Richardson showed up. Amanda's smile grew wider. We had 350 guests. The response rate was incredible. Almost everyone we invited actually came. I took a sip of wine. Waited. The trap was coming, I could feel it. 27 years of being the family disappointment had taught me to recognize the pattern. Speaking of weddings. Amanda began, her tone dipping into that familiar condescension she reserved just for me. When are you going to settle down, Sarah? You're not getting any younger, you know. There it was. Mom jumped in before I could speak. She's been dating that man for, what? 3 years now? What's his name again? James? John? Marcus, I said quietly. Right. Marcus. She waved her fork. What does he do again? Something with computers? He's a software engineer. At Microsoft. Amanda laughed. A light, tinkling sound that somehow managed to cut like glass. Oh, that's right, she said. The tech guy. Does he even own a suit? Connor chuckled. Right on cue, the loyal husband performing his part in the family comedy. My father kept his eyes glued to his plate, pretending to analyze every bite like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. That was his usual move when the conversation turned sharp. He never joined in, but he never stopped them either. Somehow, his silence always cut deeper than their words. So, Amanda pressed, emboldened by the laughter, when's the big day? Or is he dragging his feet? Men can always tell when a woman's desperate, it turns them right off. I set down my fork carefully. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading. And waiting for. Actually, I said evenly, I've already had my wedding. Silence, the kind that hums in your ears. The kind that makes the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway sound like thunder. 4 faces turned toward me, all frozen in disbelief. Amanda's mouth actually fell open. You what? Mom finally managed to stammer. I got married 6 months ago, I said. June 15th, to be exact. That's impossible, Amanda sputtered. You didn't, we would have, you got invitations, I said calmly, reaching for my wine glass. All of you did. My father found his voice. Sarah, we never received any invitations. You know we would have come. I unlocked my phone, fingers moving with practiced precision. Let me show you something. I'd been carrying this proof for months. Waiting for this exact moment, the first screenshot glowed on my screen, certified mail tracking information. 4 packages. 4 addresses. All signed for on April 23rd, see this? I turned the screen toward my father. Signature confirmation. Someone at this address signed for every single one. I zoomed in. The looped, dramatic scrawl was unmistakable, Amanda's signature. The color drained from her face. That could be anything, Mom said quickly, but her voice trembled. I swiped again. Here's the email confirmation from the stationery company, custom invitations ordered in February. Delivered in April. And here, another swipe, the credit card statement showing I paid for Priority Mail Express. Signature required. Dad's voice was quiet, but it carried a sharp edge. Amanda, did you sign for mail addressed to your mother and me? I don't remember. Maybe I. Her perfect composure was starting to crack. Let me refresh your memory, I said, my voice steady, surprisingly steady. April 23rd was a Tuesday. You came by to drop off Mom's birthday present early, remember? You were leaving for that conference in Denver. You offered to grab the mail while you were here. Connor's tone turned defensive. How could you possibly remember that? Because I called Mom that afternoon, I replied. I wanted to make sure she'd gotten the invitation. She said the only mail that day was a couple of catalogs. I thought that was strange, since the tracking showed delivery at 11:47 a.m. When I checked the signature later, I paused. I recognized Amanda's handwriting immediately. Amanda's face went from white to red. You had me investigated? I made a phone call to the post office, I said coolly. Hardly the FBI. I took another sip of wine. Thankful that years of high school theater had taught me how to project confidence I didn't fully feel. But you still haven't answered Dad's question, I said. Did you sign for our mail? This is ridiculous, Amanda snapped, pushing back her chair. I don't have to sit here and be accused like this. Sit down. Dad's voice cracked through the air like a whip. I'd never heard him sound like that before. Amanda sat. Slowly. Her chair creaked against the hardwood. Dad turned to me. His expression torn, confusion, disappointment. And something that looked almost like pain. Why wouldn't you tell us? He asked quietly. Even if we somehow missed the invitations, you could have called. That was the question I'd been waiting for. The one I'd practiced answering over and over in therapy before deciding to face this dinner. I did call, I said. My voice didn't shake. Multiple times. The first time was May 3rd, after 2 weeks of silence. Mom, I continued, you told me you were busy planning Amanda's engagement party and you'd call me back. I looked at her. You didn't. Mom's lips parted to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. I called again on May 10th. Straight to voicemail. I left a message saying I was getting worried. The wedding was only 5 weeks away and I hadn't heard from anyone. I took out my phone. Nobody ever called back. I opened my call log, scrolling with deliberate precision. May 17th, call to Dad's cell, straight to voicemail. May 19th, text to the family group chat, which, by the way, I noticed I'm no longer part of. May 24th, called the house line 3 times. May 28th, sent an email to everyone. We never got an email, Mom said quickly. I raised an eyebrow. That's because Amanda has access to the family email account. And she deleted it. Amanda froze, perfectly still, just like she deleted the one I sent in April, I added softly. Right after I mailed the invitations. You can't prove that, Amanda whispered. Actually, I said, I can. I pulled up another set of screenshots. This is the account activity log. Marcus showed me how to find it. Turns out, When you're the one who set up the family email years ago, you still have recovery access. I looked right at her. That email was opened on April 25 at 8:32 p.m. from this house's IP address. Then immediately deleted, permanently. Someone didn't want anyone else to see it. Connor's face shifted. The defensiveness drained away, replaced with something colder, sharper. A lawyer's calculation. He knew exactly what that meant, Sarah. Mom said softly, and for the first time in years, her voice didn't sound certain. Why didn't you just drive over here? If you really wanted us at your wedding, you could have. I let out a small breath. I live in Seattle, Mom. That's a 3-hour drive each way. And I made that drive 17 times in the 2 years before I moved. I paused. How many times did any of you visit me? Silence. 0, I said. The number's 0. Dad tried to speak. You came for Christmas, he said weakly. I drove here for Christmas, I corrected. For Thanksgiving. For Easter. For your birthday. For Mom's. For Amanda's. I came for her engagement party, her bridal shower, her bachelorette weekend. The words started spilling faster, sharper. I rearranged my work schedule, spent hundreds on gas. Slept on that lumpy sofa bed in the guest room that smells like mothballs. My voice was steady. But I could feel it, all the years of hurt, finally turning into something solid. Something I could hold, and you know what? I said. Not once did anyone ever ask me about my life. No one said, "Hey, Sarah, how's your job going?" Or, "Are you happy in Seattle?" I met Amanda's eyes. It was always about you. That's not fair, she said, but her voice was small now, uncertain, isn't it? I leaned forward slightly. When's my birthday, Amanda? She blinked. What? My birthday, I said. What day is it? Silence. It's October 12th, I answered myself. I turned 33 this year. Nobody called. Nobody texted. Not even a Facebook message. Mom opened her mouth. We've all been so busy. I called you on your birthday, Mom, I cut in. Like I do every year. I sent flowers. Expensive ones, from that boutique place downtown you love. I remembered. I looked around the table. Why couldn't any of you remember me? Dad's shoulders sagged. For the first time, he looked old. The wedding was beautiful, I said quietly. The anger in my chest began to fade, leaving behind a deep, aching hollow. Marcus and I got married in a little chapel on the coast. Just us, his parents, his sister, his brother, and about 15 of our closest friends. 22 people total. Small. Intimate. Perfect. I smiled faintly. His mother helped me into my dress. His father walked me down the aisle when it became clear mine wouldn't be there. My voice softened even more. We wrote our own vows. After the ceremony, we had dinner at this little seafood restaurant overlooking the water. I pulled up a photo, Marcus and I, laughing, my veil caught in the ocean breeze. I stared at it for a moment. I looked happy. Actually, genuinely happy. We honeymooned in Hawaii for 2 weeks, I went on. Maui. It was incredible. I swiped through the photos, sunsets, beaches, snorkeling, hiking. For the first time, I just existed. No comparisons. No judgment. Just peace. I let out a soft laugh. Best 3 weeks of my life, the wedding and the honeymoon. Mom reached for my phone, but I pulled it back gently. I'm not done. Sarah, please, I need to say this, I interrupted. I've needed to say this for years. I looked at each of them, one by one. When Amanda got engaged, Mom, you started planning the same night. You called vendors before the sun even came up. You made a Pinterest board, booked venues, hunted down florists. You poured yourself into making her day perfect. I took a breath. Do you have any idea what that felt like? Watching you care so deeply about her happiness while treating mine like an afterthought? We love you both equally, Mom protested, but her voice wavered. The words sounded rehearsed. Hollow, do you? I asked quietly. Because from where I'm sitting, it's always been the Amanda show. Amanda the cheerleader. Amanda the homecoming queen. Amanda the sorority president. Amanda who graduated summa cum laude. Amanda who married the successful lawyer. I gestured toward her. And me? I'm just Sarah. Regular Sarah with her regular job and her regular life in Seattle, the one no one ever visits. Dad's tone was almost gentle. You never seemed to want the same things Amanda wanted. So that made me less worthy of your attention? I shot back. Of your love? I shook my head slowly. I got my master's in environmental science. I work for a nonprofit that actually makes a difference in water conservation policy. I bought my own condo. No help from anyone. I built a life I'm proud of, but none of you ever asked about it. Not once. I looked at them, really looked. Do you even know what I do all day? Silence. I analyze water usage data, I said. I build sustainability models for cities. It's not glamorous, and it won't make me rich, but legislation I helped write was adopted by 37 cities last year. Millions of people have better access to clean water because of my work. I met Mom's eyes. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of me. We're proud of you too, Mom said softly. But she didn't look at me when she said it, are you? I asked. Then why did Amanda throw away my wedding invitations? Every head turned toward her. Amanda had been silent for a long time, her face shifting from pale to crimson and back again. Now, she looked trapped, cornered. I didn't, she started. Then stopped, her jaw trembled. Okay. Fine. She took a breath. I took them. But you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Amanda's words exploded out of her. Sharp and bubbling over like a champagne cork finally popped. Everything was supposed to be about my wedding. For once, I was supposed to be the center of attention without you trying to steal my thunder. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Steal your thunder? Amanda, I've been invisible for years. How could I possibly steal anything from you? You always do this. She shot back. You act all quiet and self-effacing, but then you pull these stunts that make people feel sorry for you. Oh, poor Sarah. Nobody pays attention to her. It's manipulation. I sent invitations to my own wedding, I said flatly. How is that manipulation? The timing. She snapped, standing again, her voice rising to that high, brittle pitch that could probably be heard 3 houses down. My wedding was in September, Sarah. You scheduled yours for June. You were trying to upstage me by getting married first. The logic was so twisted, I almost couldn't process it. Amanda, I said slowly, you got engaged in January. You'd been dating Connor for 5 years before that. Marcus proposed to me in December. We wanted a summer wedding because we love the coast in June. Your date had nothing to do with mine. You've always been jealous of me, she said bitterly. Jealous? The word tasted foreign in my mouth. Of what exactly? Of everything I have. The perfect husband. The big house. The respect. The life everyone wants. I looked at her, really looked, at the flawless makeup. The diamond ring that still caught the light. The tension hiding just beneath her perfection. I don't want any of that, I said. And in that moment, I realized it was true. I don't want a big house in this town. I don't want to gossip over brunch with the charity board or pretend to care about country club memberships. My voice softened. I just wanted my family at my wedding. That's all. I wanted you there to see me happy. Mom's voice cut in, calm but cold. Well, you should have tried harder to make sure we got the invitations. And there it was. The shift. The moment she chose her side, the same side she'd always chosen, I could feel it happening in real time. The narrative rewriting itself, the walls closing around Amanda as everyone stepped back into their familiar roles. Amanda, the wronged one. Me, the overreacting problem. I'd seen this movie before. I knew how it ended, but this time, I had a choice. You're right, I said finally, standing and reaching for my purse. I should have tried harder. I should have shown up on your doorstep and forced you to acknowledge me. I paused. Looking at each of them, my father's weary eyes, my mother's tight-lipped disapproval. Amanda's defiant glare, but you know what? I said quietly. I'm done trying. I'm done being the one who always reaches out, always makes the effort, and always gets slapped down for it. I straightened my shoulders. I'm tired of earning love that should have been given freely. Sarah, sit down, Dad said firmly. We're not done here. Actually, I said quietly, slipping my purse over my shoulder. We are. I looked around the table, at the turkey gone cold. At the forced silence sitting heavier than the food ever did. I came here tonight because some part of me still hoped that maybe, just maybe, you'd care that you missed my wedding. That you'd be upset you weren't there. I took a slow breath. But you're not upset about missing it. You're upset that I'm holding Amanda accountable for throwing away the invitations. She's your sister, Mom said sharply. Family forgives. Does it? I asked. Because I've been forgiving all of you for years. And I'm not sure I've ever been given the same courtesy. I slipped on my coat. I forgave you for missing my college graduation because Amanda had a sorority event. I forgave you for canceling Christmas the year Marcus and I first started dating, because Amanda needed help moving. I forgave you for spending my birthday helping Amanda pick out wedding venues. My voice cracked, just a little. I've done nothing but forgive. Dad's voice was soft now. Where are you going? Back to Seattle, I said. Back to my husband. My home. My life. The one I built without any of you. You're being dramatic, Amanda muttered, but there was a tremor in her tone. I turned toward her. No, I said. I'm being done. There's a difference. I started for the door, but paused halfway there. For what it's worth, I said, my back still turned, I really did want you all there. Marcus's mom kept asking why my family wasn't coming, and I just kept making excuses. Because I couldn't admit my own sister had sabotaged me. My voice softened. His family felt so bad for me. They tried to include me extra. And that just made it more obvious that mine didn't care enough to show up. We didn't know, Dad said, and for the first time, I heard something break in his voice. You could have known, I said, turning back to face them. You had my number. My email. My address. If you'd wanted to be part of my life, you would have been. Amanda didn't actually stop you. She just gave you permission to keep pretending I didn't matter. I opened the door. Cold November air rushed in, sharp, carrying the scent of dying leaves and the first bite of winter. Sarah, wait, Dad said, standing, hand half raised. Please, let's talk about this. We've been talking, I said, stepping onto the porch. Or rather, I've been talking. And you've been making excuses. The night air burned in my lungs. I turned once more, my voice low. You know what the saddest part is? Marcus asked me if I wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving at his parents' place this year. His family wanted to meet mine. I said no, because I knew you'd all be here doing this. Celebrating Amanda. I exhaled. I came anyway, because I thought maybe I owed you one more chance. I looked at them one last time. I was wrong. You can't just walk away from your family, Mom said from the doorway. Watch me. I made it halfway to my car before I heard my name. Sarah. Sarah, wait. Amanda's voice. I turned. She was running down the driveway, no coat, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. For a second, just a second, she looked like the girl I used to know. The one I'd shared a room with for 18 years. The one who used to braid my hair and sneak me her clothes before everything between us turned into a competition I never agreed to play. I'm sorry, she said, her breath clouding in the air. Tears streaked down her face. I'm so sorry. She swallowed hard. You're right. Her voice cracked. I took the invitations. I threw them away. I told myself I'd just hide them, Amanda said, her voice trembling in the cold air. Just until after my wedding. I thought I'd tell everyone afterward. She gulped, her breath catching. But then, it was easier to just pretend they never came. Easier than admitting what I'd done. Why? I asked quietly. Just tell me why. Her eyes filled again. Because you were always the good one, she whispered. Everyone always said it. Sarah's so smart. Sarah's so responsible. Sarah doesn't need attention. Her voice broke. But I did need it. I needed to feel special. And the only way I could was by making sure you weren't there to be compared to. I stared at her, stunned. That's insane, Amanda. I was never competing with you. I know, she said, her voice cracking open. That's what made it worse. You didn't even try, and people still loved you. She wiped her eyes roughly, smearing her mascara across her cheeks. I'm the worst sister in the world, she said. I ruined your wedding. I can't take that back. No, I said quietly. You can't. We stood there in the cold, barely 3 feet apart, and yet the distance between us felt like miles. Can you ever forgive me? She whispered, I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. But not today. My throat tightened. Today, I'm too angry. Too hurt. And I need to go home, to the person who actually shows up for me. I turned, got in my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, my childhood home grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared into the dark. My phone buzzed before I even hit the highway. Calls, texts, all of them. Trying to process what had just happened. I turned it to silent. When I got home, Marcus was waiting up, the living room light still on. It was well past midnight. He took one look at me and pulled me into his arms. That bad? He asked softly. Worse, I said, letting out a breath. But also, better. I think I finally said everything I needed to say. He smiled faintly. I'm proud of you. I leaned back just enough to meet his eyes. I'm proud of me too. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. My family's still doing Thanksgiving tomorrow, he said. You sure you're up for it? Of course, I said. Your mom's already asking when we'll get there. I smiled, small but real. Then that's our family now. The one that actually wants us. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces at the table, the shock, the denial. The way Mom's expression had hardened when she realized she couldn't rewrite this narrative, and Amanda's confession, it replayed in my head like a broken record. Had she meant it? Or was it just another performance? Another act to preserve her image as the golden child? At 2 a.m, Marcus found me sitting on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, staring out into the quiet night. Can't turn your brain off? He asked gently, settling beside me. I keep thinking about what Amanda said, I murmured. About me being the good one. How does that even make sense? They treated her like royalty my whole life. Marcus exhaled slowly. People's internal narratives don't always match reality, he said. She probably felt pressure to keep up that perfect image. When you're put on a pedestal, the fear of falling off can eat you alive. I looked at him. That doesn't excuse what she did. No, he said softly. It doesn't. But it might explain it. He reached over and squeezed my hand. The question is, what do you want to happen next? I stared into the dark, the question echoing in my chest. I'd avoided thinking about that. The confrontation had been the goal for so long, the final act of a story I'd been writing in my head for years. But now that it was over, what came next? Could I really walk away from my family forever? Did I even want to? I don't know, I admitted quietly. Part of me wants to never speak to them again, I admitted. But another part. I trailed off, struggling to find the right words. I spent so many years trying to earn their love, I said finally. Maybe I need to prove to myself that I can exist without it. Marcus looked at me softly. You already do exist without it. You've been doing that for years. Have I, though? I asked quietly. Or have I just been pretending? Pretending I was fine while secretly hoping they'd wake up one day and finally see me? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Raw, unfiltered truth. Every achievement, every milestone. Some part of me was still performing for an audience that wasn't watching. Marcus was silent for a moment, thoughtful. Then he said, when we got engaged, you cried. Happy tears, but you also said something else. I frowned. What? You said, maybe now they'll take me seriously. I froze. I had said that. I could still picture the restaurant where he'd proposed the candlelight. The champagne fizzing against my lip and those words tumbling out before I could swallow them back. I wanted them at our wedding because I thought it would finally prove I was worth showing up for. I said slowly, the realization forming like glass. Sharp and clear, but they didn't come. I looked down at my hands. And you know what? The wedding was perfect anyway. We were happy anyway. I didn't need them there to validate my joy. Marcus smiled gently. No. You didn't. Then why does it still hurt so much? I whispered, because you're grieving, he said simply. You're mourning the family you should have had. The parents who should have celebrated both their daughters equally. The sister who should have been your best friend, not your rival. He squeezed my hand. That's a real loss, Sarah. You're allowed to feel it. Something inside me cracked, quietly, deeply. And then I cried, not the angry, restrained kind of crying I'd been doing for years, but the deep, gut-wrenching sobs of grief for what I'd wanted, for what I'd never had. Marcus held me the whole time, not speaking, not fixing, just being there. When the tears finally slowed, I felt hollowed out but lighter somehow. Hot chocolate? He asked gently. I nodded, and he disappeared inside. Through the glass door, I watched him move around our kitchen. The one we'd built together, filled with things that made us happy, not things meant to impress anyone else. The same kitchen where we'd cooked for friends who cared about us. Where laughter had filled every corner. They'd missed all of this, and sitting there on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket at 2 a.m, I realized that was their loss. Not mine. Marcus came back out carrying 2 steaming mugs. Whipped cream. Chocolate shavings. Peppermint sticks. The peppermint sticks made me smile, the same kind we'd discovered at that tiny cafe in Lahaina during our honeymoon. I love you, I said softly. For so many reasons. But right now, especially for remembering the peppermint sticks. He chuckled. I pay attention, he said simply. It's what people do when they love someone. It was such a small statement. But it carried the weight of everything my family had failed to do. Pay attention, remember. Show up, the basic building blocks of love I'd spent my whole life craving without realizing it. Your mom asked me something last week, Marcus said, stirring his drink. She wanted to know if your family ever met me before the wedding. My chest tightened. What did you tell her? I told her no, he said. And she looked so sad. She said any parent would be desperate to meet the person who makes their child light up the way you do when you talk about your life together. My throat ached. She said that? He nodded. She did. And then she said their loss was her gain, because now she gets to have you as a daughter. I swallowed hard. She meant it, didn't she? She did, Marcus said with a small smile. My mom doesn't say things she doesn't mean. He was right. Margaret was warm but direct, affectionate without pretense, everything my own mother never managed to be. They want to throw a second reception for us, Marcus continued. Nothing big. Just family and a few close friends. A chance to celebrate with people who actually care. My parents want to host it, maybe in the spring, when the weather's better. What do you think? Marcus asked. The idea should have felt strange, like some sort of consolation prize for everything I'd lost. But it didn't. It felt like a gift. I think that sounds perfect, I said softly. Can we do it at that venue by the lake? The one with the big windows? He smiled. Already checked. They have availability in May. Of course he had. Because that's what real partners do, they anticipate, they plan, they show up. Every single time, we stayed out on the balcony until the first streaks of dawn began brushing the horizon with pink and gold. Somewhere in those quiet hours, something in me shifted. The anger was still there. The hurt too. But they didn't burn anymore. They'd become something I carried, not something that carried me. Marcus's family's Thanksgiving was everything mine had never been. Still loud, yes, but loud with laughter, not tension. His sister Emma greeted me with a hug that nearly knocked the air out of me, immediately demanding to see more wedding photos. His brother Jake tried to teach me the family card game, one they'd apparently all mastered at age 5. Margaret, of course, hovered, worried I wasn't eating enough. And Thomas, Marcus's father, asked about my work with genuine curiosity that I wasn't used to. So, you're telling me the algorithm you helped develop saved Los Angeles 30 million gallons of water in 6 months? He asked, leaning forward, eyes sharp with interest. That's remarkable. How did you account for seasonal variation in usage patterns? I blinked, surprised, delighted, then launched into an explanation. For once, I wasn't defending my choices or simplifying them to keep the peace. I got to talk, to share something I was proud of, and be met with curiosity instead of judgment. Thomas asked thoughtful questions, challenged my ideas in ways that made me think, not shrink. And by the end of dinner, he'd asked me to send him links to our published research. You've got a brilliant wife, he said to Marcus as we cleared the plates. I hope you know that. Marcus caught my eye across the table and smiled. I do. Trust me, I do. Later, while helping Margaret with the dishes despite her half-hearted protests, she spoke gently. Marcus mentioned things were difficult with your parents at Thanksgiving, she said, scrubbing a roasting pan a little too hard. I hope I'm not overstepping, but I want you to know that whatever happened, it doesn't change anything here. She looked at me then, her expression warm, steady. You're family to us now, she said. Not because you married Marcus, but because of who you are. My hands froze mid-motion, the plate I was drying slipping slightly between my fingers. I had to set it down before I dropped it, because for the first time in a very long time, I believed her. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you know. Margaret smiled softly. I'm a mother, she said. I can't imagine treating my children the way yours treated you. She hesitated, rinsing a pan. Emma told me what happened with the invitations. That your own sister. She trailed off, shaking her head. I won't speak ill of people I've never met, but I will say this, their failure to see your worth doesn't diminish your value. It only reveals their blindness. I swallowed hard. I'm still processing all of it, I admitted. Part of me wants to cut them off completely. And part of me feels guilty for even thinking that. Guilt, Margaret said, setting the pan in the drying rack, is a powerful tool, especially when it's been used against you your whole life. She dried her hands on a towel before continuing. Here's what I learned raising 3 kids. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people hurt us, not because they don't love us, but because they don't know how to love us properly. And we're allowed to protect ourselves from that. Even when it comes from family. Her words sank in like warm water over frozen skin. My dad called yesterday, I said after a moment. Just to check in. It was awkward. Neither of us knew what to say. Margaret smiled gently. First conversations after big truths usually are. She handed me another plate. The question isn't whether it was comfortable, it's whether he's willing to do the uncomfortable work of actually changing. Words are easy. Consistent action? That's the hard part. 3 days later, I got an email from my father. A long one, full of apologies, reflections, and promises to do better. He asked if we could talk. Really talk. About starting over. I wrote back and said maybe. Eventually. But I needed time. He said he understood. Amanda sent a Facebook message. I didn't open it. I turned off notifications for the family group chat I'd been re-added to, probably at Dad's insistence. Connor sent a LinkedIn request. I declined. Mom didn't reach out at all, and somehow, that hurt less than I expected. The silence from my mother became its own kind of answer. Days turned into weeks. My father called every Sunday, still awkward, still tentative, but trying. Mom, though, stayed silent. I imagined her in that same house, organizing the same closets, attending her charity luncheons, hosting her book club, living a life where hard truths could be neatly folded away. Just like everything else, work became my refuge. I threw myself into a new project, analyzing drought patterns in the Southwest. Data was clean, predictable, comforting. There were always causes and effects, variables and solutions, no messy emotions. No history to untangle. One night, as I sat hunched over my desk at 7 p.m., my colleague Jennifer poked her head in. "You're here before me and leaving after me lately," she said. "Everything okay?" "Family stuff," I said vaguely. "Just needed the distraction." She slipped into the chair across from me, uninvited, but not unwelcome. "Want to talk about it?" And to my surprise, I did. I told her everything: the wedding, the invitations, the Thanksgiving dinner, the confrontation, the fallout. Every raw, jagged piece of it. Jennifer listened without interrupting. Her face shifted from shock to disbelief to something softer: empathy. "My sister and I didn't talk for 2 years, she said when I finished. Different reason, she borrowed money and never paid it back, then acted like I was the villain for bringing it up." She gave a small, bitter laugh. But the dynamic was the same. She was the favorite. I was the afterthought. Her words hung in the air, familiar, heavy, but comforting in their recognition. For the first time, I realized how many people carried stories like mine. How many of us were quietly grieving families that had never really seen us, and learning, slowly, that we could build new ones that did. "Our parents always took her side," Jennifer said. Her voice soft but steady. "How did it resolve?" I asked. She shrugged. "It didn't, really. She eventually apologized, and now we have a cordial relationship, but it's surface level. We'll never be close like we were as kids. I had to grieve that friendship, accept that the sister I wanted doesn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did, at least not the way I remembered." "Does it still hurt?" I asked quietly. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Mostly around the holidays, or when I see other sisters who are actually friends. But I built my own family now, my partner, our friends, my chosen people. They show up for me in ways my blood relatives never did." She stood, stretching. "Give yourself time to figure out what you want this to look like going forward," she said. "And don't let anyone guilt you into forgiving faster than you're ready to." Her words echoed Margaret's, this shared wisdom that seemed to pass between women who had learned, painfully, how to protect their peace. I wondered how many people walked around carrying wounds like ours, smiling through family gatherings while quietly bleeding from invisible cuts. That weekend, Marcus and I hosted a dinner party. Nothing fancy, just 6 friends, good wine, and the beef bourguignon recipe I'd been perfecting for months. Rachel brought her new girlfriend, who instantly won everyone over. Our neighbor Tom arrived with a loaf of homemade bread that made my grocery store rolls look embarrassing. We ate and laughed and played charades until midnight. And not once did anyone ask when I was having kids or why I hadn't been home lately. "This is nice," I said to Marcus as we cleaned up, both of us tipsy, tired, and content. "This feels like family." He smiled, stacking dishes in the dishwasher with his usual endearing lack of precision. "It is family," he said. "We get to choose this. Blood doesn't have a monopoly on love." I thought about that as I washed the wine glasses by hand. Watching the bubbles shimmer in the light. My parents had always treated family like an obligation, something to perform rather than nurture. But what if it wasn't supposed to be that way? What if family was about connection, about showing up, about truly seeing each other and making space for one another's joy? The email from Amanda came the following Tuesday morning, not a Facebook message this time. Not a text. An actual email, to my work address. Which meant she'd looked up where I worked and found my contact information. The subject line read, simply, "Please read this." I stared at it for 20 minutes before I finally opened it. "Sarah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. Honestly, I wouldn't want to hear from me either. But my therapist says I need to make amends as part of my healing process. And while I know this is mostly for me, I'm hoping maybe it helps you too. I've been thinking a lot about why I did what I did. The easy answer is jealousy. But it's more complicated than that. Growing up, I always felt like I had to be perfect. Mom and Dad never said it outright, but I absorbed this message that my worth depended on my achievements, good grades, nice clothes, the right boyfriend, the perfect wedding. It became this scorecard I was constantly trying to fill out to prove I deserved love. You never seemed to need that kind of validation. You just were. Confident, steady, comfortable in your own skin. You didn't care if you weren't prom queen or if your major didn't impress their friends, and somehow that made you threatening to me, because if you could be loved without performing, what did that say about me, about all my performing? When your wedding invitation arrived, I panicked. Your wedding was going to happen first. It was going to be small, intimate, real. Everything mine wasn't. Mine was a massive production, 300 guests, most of whom I barely knew. I'd spent a year planning it with Mom, and somewhere along the way, it stopped being about Connor and me. It became about proving something to people whose opinions shouldn't have mattered at all. I convinced myself that if I just delayed everyone finding out about your wedding until after mine, I could keep the illusion alive, that I was first. That I was winning some invisible competition that only existed in my head. And afterward, I told myself I'd come clean, but the longer I waited, the harder it got, until pretending it never happened became the only thing that felt possible. I know this doesn't fix anything. I know I robbed you of having your family there on one of the most important days of your life. I know I hurt you in a way that might be unforgivable. And I know I hurt Mom and Dad, too, by making them miss it, and then letting them believe they'd somehow failed you. I'm in therapy twice a week now. I'm trying to understand why I need validation so desperately. Why I turn everything into a competition. Why I can't just be happy for other people without making it about me. It's hard work. I don't enjoy it. But I'm doing it because I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to respond to this email. But I needed you to know that I see what I did. I understand it was wrong. And I'm truly, deeply sorry. I hope you're happy with Marcus. I hope your life in Seattle is everything you wanted it to be. And I hope someday, maybe, we can find a way back to being sisters. Even if that takes years. Even if it never happens. Amanda. I read it 3 times, each sentence. Each apology. Parsing every word for sincerity, for manipulation, for some trace of the sister I'd known before everything got so twisted. It sounded genuine. But Amanda had always been good with words. I forwarded it to Marcus without comment. Then to Jennifer. And after nearly an hour of staring at my screen, I sent it to my father. His reply came almost immediately. She's trying, Sarah. That's all I can tell you. Whether it's enough is up to you. Was she trying? Or was this just another performance, therapy speak crafted to sound redemptive, meant to heal her more than the person she'd actually hurt? I couldn't tell. And that uncertainty became its own quiet kind of torment. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, a package arrived at my door. Inside was a single wedding card, unopened, addressed to my parents. One of the 4. A note from my father was tucked inside. Found this while helping Amanda clean out the garage. She'd hidden them with the holiday decorations and old tax documents. The others were there, too. I showed Marcus. We stood there together, looking down at the envelope, the elegant calligraphy, the gold foil lettering. The carefully chosen words inviting my family to celebrate our love. Should we keep it? He asked. I thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. No, I said. Let's put it in the album anyway. As a reminder, not of what they missed, but of what we built without them. Christmas came and went without a visit home. New Year's, 2.my father still called every week, short, careful conversations about weather, work, anything but what mattered. It wasn't much, but it was something. A fragile thread, thin but real. In February, a voicemail from Amanda. Her voice was softer than I remembered. She said she was still in therapy, still working on herself. That she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again, but she was trying to be better. That she hoped I was happy. I was. Then, in March, the call came. Mom had fallen. Broken her hip. Dad's voice was rough, tired. Can you come? He asked. Just for a few days. I could use the help. I thought about it for a long time, longer than I probably should have. Not because I'd forgiven everything, but because forgiveness wasn't the point anymore. This wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing to show up after years of being the one no one showed up for. When I walked into the hospital room, Mom was sitting up slightly, pale but alert. The tears came before she could speak. Real ones this time. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For not being the mother you needed. She swallowed hard. Lying here. I've had a lot of time to think. About everything. About how I failed you. Maybe she meant it. Maybe it was the pain medication. I didn't know. And for the first time, I realized I didn't need to know. I'm here, I said softly. That's enough for today. Amanda came that evening. We sat on opposite sides of Mom's bed, not talking directly, but not ignoring each other either. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was something resembling peace, tentative, fragile, human. I stayed 3 days. Helped Dad manage the house, dealt with insurance paperwork. Called the doctor about medication schedules. On the last day. As I was getting ready to leave, Dad hugged me, tight. Like he didn't want to let go. You didn't have to come, he said quietly. After everything. I know, I said. But I wanted to. I pulled back and looked him in the eye. I'm not coming back fully, Dad. This doesn't erase what happened. But I'm not disappearing either. Maybe we can find something in between. He nodded, and for the first time in my life, I saw understanding there, not guilt, not defensiveness. Just quiet acknowledgement. The drive back to Seattle felt different this time, lighter, somehow. Like I'd finally set down a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. A rest stop just outside Tacoma. I called Marcus. I'm on my way home, I said. How do you feel? He asked. I looked out at the fading light, the horizon wide and open like myself, I said. Finally. And for the first time, that felt like something worth celebrating. Sometimes, choosing yourself is the sweetest revenge. What would you have done if you were in Sarah's place? Tell me in the comments. If this story touched you, give it a like. It helps more people find it, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that stay with you long after the screen fades.